6 years ago, my wife and I started a company called Action Drone. And I started it from my bedroom. But a year later, I did something stupid. I actually almost burnt down our house. Thankfully, she still loves me, and the company's doing well, and we're still going on. Today, I still get to fly these toys and use them to actually help people create jobs and our society. But it took me a while to figure this out because I was totally doing something different from what I'm doing now. I was selling drugs. I'm kidding, Mom. Weed is not a drug. Either way, I was just lost, basically. And after high school, I had no idea what I was doing. And so I took any advice I can get. And one of the advice and most common advice that we get is go to college. That'll solve everything. Yeah, okay. And student loans later, right? But after that, I just got into college. And then there was this one advice that I got. And it was advice from my dad. And I didn't really get it because he said, do what you love as long as you're good at it. I was so confused because what I loved to do was hang out with girls, and what I was good at was partying. So when I combined that, all I got was a hangover at 17. And so I did try it. You know, I was bold enough. My friends and I started a DJ company, and I didn't know that it's illegal to serve alcohol to minors, and so they shut us down. And so I'll keep that for another story, maybe if they do a TEDx XX version. But in any case, I'm so glad that I did get into the drone industry, and I love where I'm at. But before I talk about how I got into it, let me show you what drones are actually good for. And if you guys didn't know yet, Chula Vista is a drone test site for the US government. I got really lucky that I'm here in Chula Vista. And we get to test drones to figure out what we're really going to use it for. And what we found out is that the drones are really good at making maps. And there's a lot of other stuff, but today I'm going to talk about map stuff. And so some of the maps that we've made are so accurate, and they're so precise and so current that we didn't know how powerful they are. And so some people will be like, what are maps good for? It's like, looking for Starbucks? Well, yes. I mean, that is it, right? But what we found out is we've been deploying drones everywhere. My best pilots, Jeffrey and Brian, on the east side, they've been going around the United States deploying drones to help communities. And one of the best jobs that we've ever done was this one event in Houston, Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Brian was there for a whole week with the other drone pilots mapping the whole city of Houston. And people didn't really know what they were going to do with these maps that are very current, very accurate, and have really high precision measurements. And we also had resolutions that where we could actually see plate numbers, right? And so if you look at Brian's thing, this is actually Houston, and this is Google Maps versus our map, right? Amazing. Amazing. And so what ended up happening was we had FEMA, first responders, the insurance companies, they started using these maps. Why? Because the first responders were getting up-to-date current maps, and we were actually looking at people writing SOS on their roof. We were able to rescue them. And then they were able to do it safely because they were able to calculate how deep the water was, and they were able to calculate what's the safest route. Now, the insurance company, they're the funny ones, because they're just trying to save money, and when they look at these maps, they're like, damn, we got to pay a lot. So thankfully, they still use it, and they're actually now using it to be proactive about cost. But today, I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff that drones are doing. So as a live demonstration, my best pilots on the West Coast, Chad and Keenan, they're flying these micro drones. And these micro drones right here, we actually use them to teach kids and adults how to fly drones, right? These drones can clear this whole room or this school in less than 30 seconds. Now, you're probably wondering, what else can you do with these drones? Well, one of my plans, if it's legal to do it, is actually install them in schools where we use them to protect our kids. Now, one of the ideas that I had was if there was somebody who's endangering the lives of our kids, these drones will go directly to that person and stop them. Don't let me know how, because I don't know what the legal aspect is, but we do know how to stop people, right? So thank you, Chad and Keenan, for flying these drones. So back to the part where I almost didn't become part of this drone industry. It's really hard growing up in the Filipino culture because Filipinos tend to just push you towards things that we already know is successful or proven successful. And that usually goes into nursing, engineering, or aerospace, or in the military. And I try to do all 2 out of the 3. First year in college, I was an aerospace engineer, totally flunked it, slept a lot. I don't know how I got out of it. Second year in college and third year, I was in Air Force ROTC. The colonel literally said, "You suck at this because you don't follow orders or rules and regulations." Well, that's true. I barely graduated college, in fact. And so I had a chip in my shoulder, right? I was like, nah, man, I'm such a loser in college. I wanted to make sure that I didn't want to be viewed as that in front of my friends and family, and so I had to prove something. And I thought that for them to see me and view me as someone successful, I had to make a lot of money. So I thought, well, what's the closest thing to money? Banking. So I got into banking. I had no idea what to do, but it's so weird. After a few years, I actually learned how to make money. And then I wanted people to think that I was successful, so I was showboating. I was telling people that I was making money buying stuff I don't need. And then what ended up happening was life finds a way to screw you over. And I actually ended up getting hospitalized, and I got hit with pulmonary embolism. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically your lungs explode, and you have a low survival rate. So I remember driving to the hospital, and it was so painful. I was passing in and out. And then I thought I was just sore from CrossFit. But what ended up happening was the doctor was like, "All right, you're going to stay here for the night." I was like, "Why? Just give me ibuprofen. I'll be fine." He was like, "You get another PE, you're not going to survive tonight." That was my first interaction with death. I was so scared. I was like, "Whoa, I could die? That's crazy. I'm 32." And I remember it was in so much pain, laying down in bed, and I asked basically the doctor, I was like, "What's the chances?" I was like, "We don't know." Thankfully, the 4 nurses that helped me made me feel comfortable, and of course, they're Filipinos. But I was really thankful, and that night I kept praying. I was like, "Lord, please let me survive tonight. If I can survive, I promise to change my ways to be less self-centered, and be more helpful towards others." And then I had a long night, so I kept praying. I was like, "Please let me see my wife one more time. I promise, and I'll cherish her forever. And if you have a little bit of Mexican in you, please get me one more carne asada burrito." I swear. And then I remember the sun rose, and I called my wife. The first thing I said was "Can you get me carne asada burrito?" And she was like, "You're on it." And so I was really glad I was able to fulfill some of the promises that I told God. But there was one thing that I couldn't do, which was, how do I help people? Because I had no idea how to do it. And so I was recovering, and so what I did was I went back to work. This time I was now in property management. I was leasing apartments. And the only thing I could think of was, how can I help people looking for apartments? Well, help them look for apartments. But back then I was like, how do I make money, right? And so I did that, and I didn't know that if you genuinely help people, I didn't know that that's actually a sales and marketing technique. And it actually works. Next thing you know, my property was constantly full, and I was bored. And so when I was bored, I started designing drones at work and actually prototyping them after work. My boss is listening, so my old boss, she'll probably write me up even though I don't work for her anymore. But this is the first design that I made. And basically, from this on, I created a prototype. And then it's so weird because when I posted that on social media, some dude from Brazil, not dude, but archaeologist, professor from Brazil, he called me and he messaged me through Facebook, and he said, "Hey, I need to buy your drone because I'm going to use that to actually map my dig site." I was like, "Map your dig site? You're so weird, man." Well, I didn't know that was it. The first time I got I got money out of something that I built, it was exhilarating. It was like amazing feeling. That energy is amazing. I didn't know exactly how to explain that, but it feels so good to have done that. It's so good. The only way I could describe it is it's like sex, except it lasts longer than a minute. And I say longer than a minute because when I worked my day job, I literally had to go home from 6 p.m. all the way to 3 a.m. to build my drones, and I did that for a whole year until I was able to quit my job. Now, what my dad said, do what you love as long as you're good at it, now it finally makes sense. But, a lot of people were like, well, how am I going to do this if I'm still in high school and I'm still a kid, I'm still in college? How am I going to figure out what I love to do and what I'm good at? Well, time will let you know that. Time will let you know if you suck at something. Time will let you know if you're good at something, right? As a young person, go explore the world. Go experience some stuff. The world will open up your mind, and your experience will open up your heart. And some of you are like, I'm retiring. I get it, that's cool. But you gotta remember, the best entrepreneurs actually started when they're 45. And 25% of entrepreneurs are actually 55 years old and above, right? And you have all the experience, and you have all the knowledge of how to do things. It's time for you to help people. It's your turn. Now, some of you might not start a drone company, and I get that. But somewhere inside you is an expert in something. And then when you combine that to actually be an expert and love what you do, you have created a tool that would help the world. And when you help others, you might get paid doing it. Thank you.